Hello, everybody. My name is Rubitwatu, and welcome to the first episode of the Card Table, brought to you by Competitive Cards United. Competitive Cards United is my project to unify the card game space. From trading card games from Yu-Gi-Oh, Vanguard, Magic, Pokemon to CCGs online, such as Hearthstone, Shadowverse, anything like that, and even including some of like the board game esque card games that can be played competitively. So card games I've played in the past are like Seven Wonders and Marvel's Villainous. I just want to create a community where you, no matter what card game you play, can voice your opinion or talk about the competitive aspect of it. I know from being on Reddit a lot myself, or any platform that deals with card games, that each other don't really get along, I should say. I know that Reddit for April Fool's Day is a big thing where Magic the Gathering community and Reddit and the community actually swap, and I actually think that's pretty cool because they lean into each other and kind of and play off each other and learn about the game. And I think that's really cool that because the card game community is so niche that we can get together and talk about whatever we want. So the first project I'm putting together is the card table, which is going to be a weekly or bi-weekly or however long it takes for me to make an episode. To talk about a specific card game in general from a competitive aspect. So for right now, it's going to focus on the three card games I do play, which is Yu-Gi-Oh, Hearthstone, and Lorcana. And I hope in the future to either through the guests I have or just more research to look into those other card games that exist. Another thing that competitive card United will be eventually doing is creating a website that will allow you as an amateur journalist to promote yourself on a Reddit-esque like website, and have something along that way. So you can again you'll have a Reddit-esque website that allows you to have any card game at your fingertips. That is in development, and when I say near future, when I get around to it. This has been on the back burner now for about 2.5 years, and I finally wanted to get it set up. So, welcome to the first episode. This is going to be regarding Yu-Gi-Oh. I have my guest here, Himmels. If you want to introduce yourself at all, accolades you have in the Yu-Gi-Oh community, or anything like that.
Delays. What the? My name is Alex, or Himmels. I play, relatively close to Tom. Tom lives, what, hour from me,
Yep.
ish. We're about an hour apart, so we intersect at locals quite a bit. We play games, some other games with each other, uh, outside of Yu-Gi-Oh as well, whether it's League of Legends or, kind of Lorcana when I could actually make it out to play. um, but for the Yu-Gi-Oh community, as far as Yu-Gi-Oh accolades go, I'm not like a huge player by any means. I have a couple regional tops, top Lockhaven last year, and then or in 2022 rather, and then I got top four at the South Park regional in uh 20 in last when was it
Just
last
recently.
September. Yeah, that was last September, so relatively recently. And then um the last Philly regional that had 655 plus people or whatever, I got 16th at that as well. So nothing too major, but
Hey,
I probably good enough player to at least know what I'm talking about in some sense.
the good thing here is that you have a lot more accolades than I do. So if people think I know what I'm talking about, then you obviously know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Now we're not
yeah,
influential players, but we hope we can be one day. And I think that we
absolutely.
have. I mean, Himmels has been playing Yu-Gi-Oh for a lot longer than I have. I only came back into the game in 2022, and only got back into it competitively. And I came back mostly to collect and actually buy and sell vintage product, which didn't happen. So now we got back into the competitive.
Yeah,
Um,
I came back for the same reason. Basically, I was like, oh, I'll start collecting cards. Then, like 2019, I'm like, I guess I'm gonna play competitively.
I went to Unmatched Gaming and I to support the shop because I hadn't seen them in such a long time, and I bought a display of Maximum Gold El Dorado, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna support the shop, and I have a gambling addiction. I'm gonna be the first one to, put that out there. But I opened the box of El Dorado and I pulled shit, and I'm like, well, I'm back, boys. Give me 5 more displays,
Give
and
you 5 more displays is crazy.
I will now order 3 cases of every new product you have coming in. I don't know what I was thinking, but yeah. So that's just to give a brief overview of Competitive Cards United. Hope to out more often. So to get into the episode, our first topic, and I don't want this to be a topic by topic basis. I want this to be more of a flow of just talking, going back and forth, bringing ideas back at each other. Something that this inspiration show has come from is I am a very big League of Legends player. I've watched the competitive scene for a very, very long time, and I listen to and watch Monte Cristo and Thorn, Summoning Insight, Power Spike, anything on the Last Free Nation channel. And the biggest asset to those podcasts is it allows for flow of communication, constant. I mean, I don't want to say bantering, but there's a ton of bantering. Maybe some trash talk, but it's also high level analysis and also constant discussion rather than focusing on one point here and then we're going to the next point and then the next point. But I mean, to start us off, one of the biggest things I've noticed in the past month and a half, month and a half, with the rise of Snake Eye in the competitive format, is people complaining or bringing it up, or just a topic of conversation, is the price of Yu-Gi-Oh. So one of the biggest problems that people have is that Yu-Gi-Oh is just too expensive. Cards cost a lot of money, and they can't grasp that in their heads. They think that just because this is a card game, cards should be cheap. So I'm gonna pull up, with Snake Eye being such a big deck, I want to bring up how much it actually costs to play the best deck of Yu-Gi-Oh. Now, you as a viewer don't need to play the best deck. Decks like Pearly, decks like I don't want to say Voiceless Voice, that deck's around $250, but
Wanderees.
Wanderees, $20 deck for Wanderees. You have Pearly, with the announcement of the Rarity Collection 2, now has a very, very low price tag and is still a pretty deck. And I think the biggest thing that people need to get through their heads is that if you are the best of the best players, will find a way to get the best of the best cards, regardless of the price of them. Either people at your shop sponsor you, or your shop, promote your shop in some way. I'm not going to say it's going to work, but it can. And if you grind your ass off on Dueling Book, and, you show that you're a competitive player, you'll find your way to the cards. I have up on the screen the price tag for Snake Eyes. Now, this was a spreadsheet I brought up last week. I created last week, and actually the price of Snake Eye went down even more dramatically. So for around the deck, Snake Eye right now, and just the core, it's around $1,200. That's what it was the UDS, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Undisputed Championship Series that Jesse Con ended up winning. $1,200 for the deck. People knew the deck was going to be good upon Age of Overlord release. Just last week, the wanted poster, the Secret Spoils, and Bonfire, and Poplar, and Princess. All these cards dropped by like 20-25%. Now, it's mostly because of the ban list, or fearing the ban list, but just, I mean, at the end of the day, Yu-Gi-Oh does go down. Do you want to put anything on the symbols? Your thoughts on the price of the card game?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, Snake Eye is naturally an expensive deck, which is, I'm not gonna say it's to be expected, but it's like almost every card in that is pretty high rarity coming out of. I mean, Egg was a good set, but the other like the recent set with Poplar and Princess, I don't know, I can't think of the name of it, but it's like that set's actually
Phantom
not
Nightmare,
very
Phantom
good.
Nightmare. Yeah.
Phantom Nightmare, yeah. Phantom Nightmare's like not really a great set otherwise, so there has to be value somewhat somewhere else. And like you said, or like we're seeing here, a lot of it's coming out of the ultra rares in terms of Poplar and Princess. Like $25+ ultra rares are like not, we don't see that super often. We've seen a little bit in the last year, right? Between Fenrir. Fenrir is the last big one that was like $40+, and then I don't even know
The
like
big
what the
recent
most
set was Power of the Elements, where you had about 4 ultra rares that were hitting that $20 price tag. You had Garua, you had Sprite Elf, you had Rhino Heart, and
yeah.
there was another one in there. I can't.
But even
Kid
like
Kalos. Yeah.
Rhino didn't like hold at $20 though. Rhino was $20 like the first week, and then it went down to like 15, and then it went down to 10, and then it ended up settling at like, I don't know, probably around between $8 and $10. Garura was one that went up in price over time. Garura was like, that one started out at like $10 to $12 and then went up, holding at about $20. What was the other ultra rare you said out of that one?
Sprite Elf.
Yeah, Elf wasn't too bad price wise actually. Elf was never like a $20 card. I think it ended up being
It
like
hit
what?
20. It hit 20.
Did it hit 20?
Yeah, it actually went up even more after the set got released. But I think it's
Okay.
not necessarily price tags on specific
Yeah.
cards. I think it's just I don't think you as a consumer as playing a hobby. Just think about this: if you pick up a hobby, whether it be golf or sports like golf, kayaking, you want to pick up I have now forgotten hobbies, but tennis. You play tennis, Himmels.
I
Just
do
think
play
of the
tennis.
just think of the barrier of entry that it costs to enter a hobby. If I picked up golfing like 4 years ago, and I don't do it anymore, but I got a set at a very good price of like 99.99, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty cheap. But now I need to buy golf balls. I need to buy gloves. I need to buy the things you put into the ground so you can swing the golf club. And
The tees.
yeah, the tees. And these are renewable, like they're things that you need to constantly buy. So there's always maintenance. There's maintenance. I guess you can call it a maintenance fee. Of how much money you need to constantly put into it. Yu-Gi-Oh is kind of similar in the sense that yes, you need to spend money on the game, and with every new set release, you need to spend more and more money. But the difference between Yu-Gi-Oh and these other hobbies is that you have, as the consumer, have the ability to then make money on the cards you bought.
Hmm.
A lot of people choose not to do this. They sell to their stores. They sell to backpack vendors like myself. But if you hold on to your cards or you choose to sell them correctly at the high point of the format, or you know this card's gonna get good, so you pick up a couple pieces of it and then you can sell it later. That is the positive of the card game. And we are also in a much better spot than we were about 2 years before the introduction of the rarity collection in the first place, but also these structure decks that reprinted Ash, Droll, Bell, what was Dimensional Barrier. There was a spell card, Pot of Prosperity coming out in the Megatins. I, as a returning player in 2022, had to spend about $500 to $600 just on staples alone, and that is so much worse because that's more of a barrier to entry than coming in and buying a core for $20, and then buying a core for a very large amount of money, and then already have all these staples. Because you can choose what deck you want to buy. But if you chose what deck you wanted to buy 2 years ago, you still need to put on another $600 to your tab. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that that them Konami's done a very good job recently of like reprinting staples. Whereas like in the past, even when I joined back into the Yu-Gi-Oh community, right, I couldn't afford a set of imperms. I was still like in college. I didn't have a whole lot of money at the time. Imperms were like they had just gotten the was it the dual power reprint? So
Dude,
they were still
yeah.
like they're like 40 they're like $40 or $45 each. I pulled one of them out of a dual power box that I had bought, so I just ran with the one imperm. I got Ash Blossoms out of the dual Devastator, which was still like even the dual Devastator Ash Blossoms were like $15 each. So I like dual Devastator was another great product by Konami, by the way.
Yep.
That was a product that I think the community desperately needed, and I guess that since then, like rarity collection is the closest thing that we've had to that, where it's just like a whole bunch of staples that you could get for relatively cheap. Um, Also, not to nobody if you're getting into Yu-Gi-Oh, don't sell your staples. Always hold on to your staples. Like I said, of anything that could be seen as like generic or whatever, you should just always keep a set of it on you. To be honest, like because you never know when you're gonna need it, and it always feels really bad having to buy cards like that back. Like look at like
Yep.
Crossout Designator. Crossout Designator on release was like a $40 card. It saw no play. It dropped down to like a $6, $7, $8 card, and then oh, it's seeing play right now, so now it's like a $20 card.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, rarity collection as well. Where as somebody who's been buying, I've been buying a ton of rarity collection bulk from other people, and just the people who are willing to sell droplets, pot of prosperities, what are the good cards come in that set? They secret rare veilers. These rarities that Veiler never came in before.
you're
Just
seeing Ash Blossoms of different rarities go up too, like
yes.
always.
Um,
Uh,
yeah, but you know that in within a year since this set came out, they're not Konami now has no reason to reprint these cards. So if you're somebody who now sells, like you bought a box of Rarity Collection, you got your playset of droplets, and you recognize, hey, this format doesn't use droplets, so I'm going to sell them. And then a year later, a droplet becomes good, and because there hasn't been a reprint in a year, that card now goes up to $20, $15, $20 for a card. Like what? Like it makes no sense. And these are the same people who are complaining about card prices. So these people who are selling their cards for dirt cheap and then being forced to then buy them again, are then complaining about how cards are so expensive. It
Cards
makes
are
no sense to me.
exactly like the stock market, like your
Yeah,
chatter. So kind I always compare it to that. I'm like, Yu-Gi-Oh is literally just like it's literally the stock market. It's like, okay, should I buy this card now? Hold on to it, sell it, do whatever with it. Like you
yeah.
have to know when to buy and sell cards, just like you have to know when to buy, hold, sell stocks. Same thing, honestly.
It's extremely
Um,
volatile as well.
yeah,
it
it's
actually
a really
more
volatile
resembles
lot.
the cryptocurrency market than the actual stock market. The stock
Yeah,
market is you're
because
eventually going to always. I was told that your investment's always eventually going to pay off if you invest in like a 401k in stocks. But more in lines of cryptocurrency, where if you invest in a card so heavily, like I currently did with I picked up a ton of Vice's Samsaras. I currently have about 50 copies of Vice's Samsara. Thinking Medium is eventually going to be good. If this card gets reprinted as a secret again, like that, what was the point of
what
me
if it's just
buying
in
all?
rarity collection too?
Yeah,
Then what?
uh, it, but yeah, that I personally don't think that there's an issue with how Konami's currently running the and Konami also doesn't control the secondary market. Yes, they do rarity bumps from the OCG, and people always say, why don't they just copy how they do the OCG here? I don't necessarily have an answer to that, but the big problem is, and it was a big thing with Dune, Duelist Nexus being such a bad set, because you get the same people saying that how cheap the cards were in that set. So there's no reason to go to local events and get prizing in Duelist Nexus. But then the same people then say, Age of Overlord, these cards are so expensive to buy, but oh boy, I really want to play these events. So it goes both ways. If cards aren't expensive, then there's no local events. You only have your regionals and your YCSs to go to because nobody's showing up to get that crappy prizing. But then if you have this amazing set that has all these big chase money cards, you're going to be going to those local events. So it's a two-way street. And overall, I think the barrier for entry is almost non-existent now for you. You can always find a deck like three structure decks that gives you a viable deck already. You throw three Fire King decks together, you throw a Dogmatic Engine in there that costs $5 with some staples, you have a $20 deck that's pretty good. Yeah, I personally don't think that barrier of entry is a thing anymore. So I just
Say
hope.
the only complaint I do kind of agree with for sure is like Konami not doing special editions or like unlimited runs anymore. I think that's a miss on their end, honestly. Um, Special editions were really cool. I
Yep.
really like the special editions. Those were like some of the best things to go. Like if you go to like a local Target, you see a special edition, you're like, cool. You get 3 packs, you get like a promo card. It's really cool. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah, especially if the promo card's
Unlimited
good. Yeah.
unlimited print runs, right? So Pote became a little bit more accessible for people, slightly. It wasn't that was the last reprint set they did. They haven't done any since then. They hadn't done any really before that for quite a while. And okay, sure, you could argue that Guerrero is still expensive, but every other card in that set was like ended up dropping to it was still worth ripping into those packs, right? Like look at Perla Rhino. Perla Rhino was $100 and I'm dropping to like $60, stuff like that. Where it's still like it's good to open those. You don't feel bad opening a pack of Pote, but a little bit more it's a little bit easier to swallow than like $100 for a Perla Rhino, right?
I agree. But also at the time when I mean, very similar to the Fire King format right now, was that Perla Rhino was only expensive for like the first month of the set being. Uh, as soon as I guess I should say, Sprite was the big deck at that time. It wasn't that big, that much that played. But as soon as Darkwind Blast and Magnificent Mavens came out, Perla Rhino dropped to like $40 a piece because regardless of the
Mm-hmm.
unlimited per or not, it's the same thing with a ban list coming out where worrying these cards are getting hit, but then those cards didn't get hit for like another 3 months. So I think that's again I think it's a non-issue at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on to I mean speaking of Fire King and Snake Eye and how prevalent those decks are, I do want to give a talk about the most recent YCSs we just had 2 3 weeks. We had YCS Costa Rica and we also had YCS Las Vegas, which I wish I could go to. I could have went to, but I'm actually going to Vegas now in 3 more days. Not for Yu-Gi-Oh! I wish it happened in the exact same weekend. Would be awesome. I could work and then that Saturday, boom, go play Yu-Gi-Oh! And then come back on a corporate ticket. That'd be awesome. But I wouldn't have a team either. I'd find randoms and then go zero. But we definitely saw the prevalence of Fire King, which we knew this was going to happen. We saw all the OCG reports from 3-6 months ago. Like we saw the big rescue ace resurge, surge when they got emergency and the Snake Eye cards. Now we saw the rise of Snake Eye, and for some reason people still didn't understand that. And now we're in a huge Snake Eye format. So just pull up a couple of the deck lists that we have. Or actually not really deck lists, but we'll talk about Costa Rica first. Even though these pie charts are basically the exact same, we definitely saw, and I think, regarding the top 16 or the top 48 decks in both scenarios, we definitely saw that Fire King Snake Eye was a better deck than the Snake Eye variant. Even though I personally like the pure Snake Eye variant more, I think it has a lot more options. But Fire King is just a lot more explosive in the sense that it dodges your imperms, it dodges your veilers. If your opponent ever attacks something, you just come out swinging with a Grenadine Grave into Kieran deck to bring back like an Arvada, and then if they kill the Arvada, the Kieran comes back. It has so much more potential, but with a bit more of a brickier con. YCS Costa Rica had about a 75 to 80% top 48 deck list representation of Snake Eye, just in general. And then we saw a couple Voiceless Voice, and then we saw other decks. I think it might have been Lab, where there's always a
It was Fluandery, so I have it pulled up actually. It's we saw one rescue ace snake. Or no, this is the
You
that
probably
was
have
the
Vegas.
other one. I had Vegas pulled up, but we saw Fluanderies. We saw a Kashtira. We saw a branded. We saw two branded actually, and then that was it.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not gonna talk about like each one separately. We're just gonna move around to Vegas just because it's such a similar topic in the sense that
Yeah.
these two decks. So let's look at Vegas. Vegas has around almost the exact same, literally the exact same representation. You have maybe a bit more of the pure Snake Eyes because I know a lot more of the influential players were really getting people to pick up pure Snake Eye lists. I know Pac had a huge thing like he played pure Snake Eye for I think, and then he brought that exact same list to Las Vegas, and I know he has a lot of influence on the community, and therefore that might affect deck building decisions. And then we saw Voiceless Voice, Fluanderies, Kashtira, these three decks that constantly exist in the front just because they're shifting out decks, and Voiceless Voice. But yeah, I personally, so I mean, and I'll give what my thoughts are on the format. I think we're actually in a pretty cool format, not healthy, but a really really cool format in the sense that the fire deck, as opposed to tier limit, has a lot more interaction.
I like the fire deck. I like playing it. It feels a lot of fun to play. I don't mind facing it actually because it's not. It doesn't actually feel like suffocating. You know, it kind of is suffocating, but it doesn't feel that way because it gives you a chance to play, and they can misplay with that deck and just like lose with it.
And very much like, unlike tier limit, this deck also really loses. I mean, I don't want to say really loses to hand traps, but we're really seeing an influx of 12 to 15 main deck hand traps. Your tier limit hand traps were 9 Bestials, and hope to God you one versus them for their 2 or 3 names they're gonna mill 5, off of milling 15 with Kalos and the 2 Ashish cards. Whereas this is, if they summon Snake Eye Ash and they don't have original, which is a 1 of, or they don't have their 6 of Witch, and you stop that, their turn ends.
Hey, don't forget the 3 bonfire.
3 bonfire as well, I guess. Which is why we're in such a high.
What do you mean? I guess. That's why that card's expensive.
That's a volcanic card. I'll have you know.
Okay.
It searches
volcanic bonfire.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, the 3 bonfires as well. But because we're in such a high heavy hand trap format, you're probably going to open up 2 to 3 hand traps. I personally don't like that part of the format because it allows for more brickier situations where you up like Snake Eye Oak, an Imperm, and an Ash Blossom. Maybe you're seeing
Hani opening up 5 hand traps.
Or you're opening 5 hand traps, like Hani drawing into a 6th one and saying, "Oh God, let's fucking get this going." And but yeah, I honestly do think this format's really cool. I personally haven't played the fire decks myself. I'm playing a much cooler fire deck in the sense that I kill you on turn 1 with 8150 damage. But I really do like these decks. They're obviously going to get hit. There's nothing. I mean, Konami can't not do anything about it.
Watch them.
Well, yeah, it'll be like tier limit. It'll be like tier limit where they don't do anything for the for.
Watch them. They're gonna
And
hit Cash Tira.
I hate that. I think that deck's gonna get hit as that deck has been around for a while and it's still causing problems. Mainly because of Shifter, but Konami refuses Shifter is a problem, so they're obviously gonna hit something else other than Shifter. Yeah. Do you have anything like any thoughts on Vegas and Costa Rica? The next YCS we have is Raleigh coming up. I presume you and I are both seeing that unless there's a ban list, this is the
uh,
exact same
so
future.
so I think there's a couple South American YCSs coming up actually that might be
Correct.
happening right before Raleigh. But so and I think there is a chance that we see a ban list before Raleigh happens. Um, so I don't know if this is exactly what we'll end up seeing.
If there isn't a
Format
ban
wise
list,
for Raleigh. If there
if there
isn't a
isn't a
ban
ban
list, then
list,
yes, this is basically what I would expect. I wouldn't because we don't get the new set until after the week after Raleigh. There's no reason for anything to change here other than maybe pure Snake Eyes might become the dominant variant. Who knows? Kind of irrelevant. They end on very similar boards. Like if you have no way to like if you get interrupted at any point in the Fire King engine, you're just playing pure Snake Eyes anyways because you have no way to get to your Fire King engine unless you're hard opening up like your island or like basically just your island. That's the only thing that's going to get you into your engine other than uh if you have a way to get like a Ponix out of your hand and then reborn it off Oak or something. But
what are your thoughts on like the new tech cards that we saw in Vegas? I know one of the biggest ones was Lullaby of Obedience that was brought to you by Mr. Pack himself.
Mr. Pack himself, yeah.
I personally don't think it's a good option, but I see why it's good.
Well,
Um,
I think it makes sense only if you're prepping for top cut exactly. If you're confident you are going to make top cut at where every single deck you face is basically going to be Snake Eyes or Fire King, that card is fine to main deck. But the majority of people aren't at the level where they're like, I'm going to be making top cut here. And maybe it's because it's a 3v3, you have a little bit more lenience when you're
yeah,
playing with I'm playing with two of the other best players in the world. There's only so many best players in the world, right? We can't possibly lose that many.
I mean, I'm the number two Duel Links player in North America. So.
That's true. That is true.
So imagine being Pack and you're playing your 3v3 and you're like, whether it's top 64 and you're on the bubble and you're going first, you slam down Lullaby of Obedience, you call Snake Eye Ash, your opponent says, I don't have it, and they were holding the BM shifter the entire time.
Not
And
the
you look at their
BM
deck and it's just,
shifter.
you see Cash Tira card, and on resolution they say Shifter, and you say, well, I lost the tournament.
I don't. To be fair, I don't think they're ever blind calling Snake Eye Ash unless they know what their opponent's playing. Maybe they're probably like blind calling Ash Blossom is my guess.
Probably, yeah.
Either Ash Blossom or Nibiru. It's one of those two for sure. But probably Ash Blossom because it's a fire monster that could help them extend through hand traps by
Oh
putting it in
yeah,
the
you
opponent's
call Ash
grave.
Blossom, and they probably don't put it to your hand. They put it to your field. You normal summon Gohita, and
Yeah.
then you have full combo off of that. That's insane. I didn't even
Yeah,
think
so
about that.
it's either they give you a hand trap or they give you an extender,
He's a fucking
basically.
genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like another reason why it's like so I'm playing Snake Eye Fire King now, but I was playing Voiceless for a while, and I was like afraid to main deck Ash Blossom because he does an extender through another hand trap. Like if you ash them and they have any other name to get into a Hita, you're still dealing with like Princess make Ambler Well, another interruption there, whatever. It's not the biggest like deal, I guess, but you're still like giving them a way to extend. If they have another body, they get more out of it. It is what it is. But like at least at big events, it might be more reason to like side Ash Blossom. Not really. I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
but
I know. I think a lot of
like
people were actually signing out Ash Blossom. Like you made it, and then you sided out going
that's
if you're
probably what
going
I'll end
second
up doing
versus the
if I
deck.
was if I was playing any non fire deck. That's probably what I would end up doing because Ash Blossom hits like every other deck, and you can't expect
You still need to make it. You get Branded Fusion. You get Welcome. Like you see somebody say
you
Stogie
still
Swarmy,
want to
and you're
have
like,
it
well, shit. I Ash Blossom's in my side deck.
because yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's like would you rather main deck Ash Blossom or Ghost Spell, and Ghost Spell just hits more usually, or Ash
Ash
Blossom
Blossom
hits
hits
more than
more.
Ghost
Yeah.
Spell. Um, because Bell's the only kind of acceptable replacement I'd say that kind of hits a similar range of decks, but it's
Yep.
like Ash is arguably just better.
It's
I don't know.
it's
I'm
just
not
such a good
not
card.
in love with
Ash is
either
just
of them
such a
right now.
yeah. I guess the other big tech, and I mean at the moment it's now a staple, is Cosmic Cyclone.
Yeah,
That's something that only really saw play starting Costa, because now we're in this round where if you like Cosmic Cyclone hits almost every deck in the have Snake Eye, it hits the IQ Mastery, and they summon off a dragon. It hits Fire King Island. You draw phase fucking Cosmic Cyclone, the Fire King Island. They only have like two more interactions on. They have Princess and they Princess from Graveyard, and because they brought back the two with
that's
the
the key
guy
word there. On their
on
board
the
is the
board.
key.
Well, actually,
But like if they're
they'll have zero interaction on the board because they'll have two interaction in Graveyard with Princess and Grix.
yeah, but if they
But
end on whale, right? And so let's say their end board is whale, and then they bring up the IP with Flamberge, and it's whale Flamberge IP, and you Cosmic Cyclone the island. Island will pop
because
the board.
IP only stops your opponent destruction. So if they chain IP,
Yeah, but remember whale has a grave effect where they can
oh
just
yeah, it
reborn
brings
the
back the
IP.
IP.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, this deck's fucking crazy. It's awesome, but it's so
Yeah.
crazy. But okay, regardless, Cosmic Cyclone hitting. I mean, I still think
It's
hitting
still
islands,
very no
still
no
hitting islands
Cosmic is
really
still
good.
really good. No,
It hits
Cosmic's
that.
crazy, so
It hits the best card in the Voiceless voice deck. That spell card is fucking insane. I
it
don't
hits the
like
thing that makes everything in towers.
that's a
Yeah.
giga custom card. You have Runic deck still exists. Runic Fountain is just so crazy. So you Cosmic Cyclone that.
They don't exist if I don't believe in them.
I personally Runic's like my favorite variant. I think I just love the concept of it decking people out and taking a long.
Says the burn player.
Maybe a little bit more degenerate of me, but you hit against
Field spell.
Labyrinth.
You hit map.
You hit map against Labyrinth. Even if they do resolve welcome, big welcome, you still banish it, so you don't have the card effect. And then against many other we'll talk about it banlist wise, but summon limit, anti spell fragrance. These cards are being
Yeah,
sided,
that's
so this card's
that's
yeah.
the issue. Is I think that like you have to have Cosmic somewhere in your list, main or side, because you know that going first, for the most part, every single deck is going to be siding in one of those floodgates, whether it's anti-spell or summon limit. And I'd rather just draw the Cosmic for the out to those. Like I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, I think those are the two big decks that got seen. I mean, I want to talk about some other decks that aren't Snake Eye. I mean, I think Snake Eye is the best deck. It's tier 0. I actually think it's more tiers than Tier Limit, just because Shifter hurt Tier Limit so much more. Soft one, the
I
reason
don't know. It hurts. It hurts the fire decks quite a bit. I got shifted 3 times in 2 games. Let me tell you. To be fair though, like it was fine-ish. The issue was like getting shifted 2 times in one game. Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah.
Sure. And then I got shifter even lead. Sure. Okay.
Yeah, it's. I just think that Tier Limit got hit so much more by Shifter because first off they can mill 5 and then that all gets banished, or they just if
Yeah.
they can't end on Baguska they lose the game. And that was the big thing. Baguska didn't see play in tier format until Shifter started being so big that now we're playing Baguska for this one.
Sure.
So I mean Snake Eye is now tier 0, but I do want to talk about some other decks. Like, what are your thoughts on Voiceless Voice? I personally think the deck is terrible. Even if we didn't have Snake Eye cards, I think this deck is pretty bad. Post Phantom Nightmare. I keep on calling it like Photon something.
Yeah, I was doing that the same thing. I think
But
the deck's good though. Like I played the deck for a while, right? I think the deck is good. There's a lot of different. It has quite a few different like non-agent slots, similar to Snake Eyes, right? It has you kind of have to. You don't. I've seen lists without playing pot cards, but you should be playing. I think Prosperity, in my opinion.
yep,
Then you have a slot for like pre-prep stuff like that. So you probably have like 9 to 12 non-engine slots. I want to say it's closer to 12 spots for hand traps, and then like a called by. So it's like I guess if you count called by as non-engine, that's about 13 slots there. Um, you can play. You have the option to play Super Poly, which is nice. You don't go into the extra deck very often. You play under some limit. You could play under anti spell as well because low places it doesn't activate. Yeah. So you have the option to play both of those cards, in your side deck. Obviously, I think some limit's better in that deck because you get to play for free. And the deck is like the board is kind of unassuming, but it's surprisingly hard to deal with. Like you're dealing with a 4100 attack Omni Negate Towers when they set up their full combo, which is like not very hard to do because you play six copies of low basically between
Yeah.
diviner and low. You have ways to dodge it in engine with Saravis, like if you're able to pre-prep, grab a Saravis if you and then like protect your low. Obviously you don't need to do that because you could just if you just pre-prep, grab the ritual spell and Skull Guardian and you have a low in hand already, that's full combo. You don't like even need to normal summon the low for that at that point. Um and it's like setting up that plus another the main deck Sarav or the main deck Sarav is bouncing back to hand and summoning the ritual Sarav is for basically a solemn strike on your opponent's special summons is like surprisingly hard to deal with, especially when you're probably also dealing with 1 to 2 hand traps. It's just like you have to dedicate a lot of resources to out the Skull Guardian, and even if you out the Skull Guardian with the card like I don't know a Super Poly or some way to like non-target send it to the graveyard, they just banish the ritual spell and summon another one from deck anyways. It's like it's not that easy to deal with. It doesn't have the same power level as some other decks, no, but it's probably like the best non-shifter mid-range option that we have, and we've seen for quite a while.
If Snake Eye were in a deck, would this be the best deck? You think
It could
other
be a
decks?
best deck because I think it's like relatively easy to prep for,
I
right?
agree. We're not
That's
seeing
the issue with the deck.
Bystials as well.
Yeah. So I think another reason I don't see this brought up as much, but in the OCG, a lot of the Bystials are hit in some capacity, right? We only have Mag hit here in the TCG. So Bystials definitely hurt the deck a fair bit. Though I will say you can play under Bystials a little bit um depending on the hand you're kind of able to play underneath them. It's not optimal, but like a lot of the 2 card combos do play under Bystials. It's not the end of the world. And then if you're able to get into the ritual Saravis, it's like or the main deck Saravis, you're able to just summon a low from deck anyways. So like you
Oh
can
yeah,
play
yeah,
around
yeah.
it. The trap card also can summon low from deck. So that's the biggest thing, right? The entire deck's purpose is it's it's like how do you keep low in rotation?
Yep.
And the deck has a lot of ways to do that. So I don't think it's like the end of the world per se if like people start playing a lot of Bystials. Because like you could play around it just by normal summoning low and then having I don't know having another ritual name in hand. It's not that big of a deal. You probably just start playing more copies of pre-preparation of rights, stuff like
Gotcha.
that. Um, but the deck is Dark Ruler hits the deck quite a bit. You can play around it with the trap card. But it is kind of a pain to do.
Hmm.
Super Poly sucks. It's like not that great against the deck unless you're the
Yeah, Super
greatest player of
Poly.
all
I just
time.
realized that ritual spell has that effect. Wherein because
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
use Super
yeah.
Poly on their board, they just end on
Yeah,
like
they
they get the same
actually go
board.
plus off of it.
Yeah.
So you discard one. So let's say they don't have the trap access.
Yep.
Um, but they just set up Skull Guardian low barrier, and then you super poly that board. They banish it. They summon
They now
another
have the
Skull Guardian from
trap.
deck. Low summons herself, and then you get the trap card.
Yeah.
So it's like you get rid of 2 cards, and they gain 1 card. So it's like literally, it's like a -3. It's really bad. Um, but
I think that deck's very similar to like Brandon, where if that deck was the best deck, it would be like it can never
yeah,
be the best deck because
it
of
it
what
it
can be
it
decided by
slots in best as like a second or third best deck almost always, just because you have to play kind of differently into that deck. The deck's like kind of hard to play into. It's not the biggest deal, but it's like a lot of the cards that you're prepping for that deck maybe aren't good against other decks, and so on and so forth. So it's like there's not always going to be a whole lot of crossover between that and the best deck, especially right now, right? A lot of the decks that are or cards that are really good into voiceless aren't necessarily that good into the fire decks, which
Speaking
is
of
why you probably
Brandon,
see a yeah. What about
yeah,
branded? Oh, what do I think
I
of
think
branded?
that's the second best deck in the form. I personally think it is.
I think it can be. I think it gets hit a lot harder by a lot of the hand traps that people are playing though in voiceless.
Oh yeah, I mean yeah, 14. Yeah, even if you don't open up the Ash, even if they have the Imperm
If
for the
you're
Brandon Fusion, they
Imperm
have
Veiler Mourner, right? That could
yeah.
unless they have lost, right? Unless they have lost up, but like
That's
if they have
just so degenerate. I don't know.
if they have two hand traps against you, it's really hard for Branded to play. To be fair, like if they have like Imperm Ash or Imperm Veiler, stuff like that. It's really hard to play because they normal summon Aluber to try to search loss. You Imperm that. They go Branded Fusion, summon.
I actually
I
take back what I
guess
said. I think that deck is
I
because
don't think it's terrible because if you set
it
up
doesn't
Puppet Lock, it's good. But
it does
like you
it
have to be able to
is
get to Puppet Lock.
it doesn't allow you to play because that deck has so much engine in it. It's kind of like Dragon Link where
You don't play as many hand
you can't
traps.
play as many hand traps. And I think you need to be playing a deck right now that plays 12 or 13 card engine, 15 hand traps, and then 8 or 9 non-engine that get you to.
Yeah, it's hard. I think that what makes the Snake Eye deck so like hard to play against is because the engine is so small. They can play so much non-engine.
I think
Like
the
they do
only
so much with so little, and they don't really need to play. The only like I guess non-engine card that gets them into their engine is like Bonfire.
yeah.
Right? That's only 3 cards they have to play because everything else is just a consistency card in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, you originally didn't consider. I never considered a Wanted or the Bowser engine as engine. I always thought it was completely separate from the guy stuff. But now it's like because
Yeah.
people were summoning like the Infernoble cards or Hydran
Yeah,
Panic Run
I mean, it
Fire
was
or
originally obviously meant as part of the Snake Eye engine,
yeah.
right? The way that the cards read, but the Snake Eye cards were just not very good at the time.
I guess the last two decks that are probably big meta contenders are which decks I don't want to talk about, which are Fluke and Cashier. I don't think we
Yeah, I
really need
hate
to
those
talk
cards. I hate
about
both
them.
those decks. I
I
mean,
honestly think Cashier is still a really cool deck because you're like the M board seems so simplistic of like end on Fenrir Ogre Unicorn. That's your M board.
I
Like
like the Kashtira cards without Shifter,
I
right?
agree.
If they didn't play Shifter, I'd think Kashtira is very cool. But if they like go Fi or they go Shifter and then they end on their end board, it's like completely
Kill me.
annoying to
Yeah,
deal with, man.
it's kill me now.
It's like okay, I have to play through these like on field disruptions, a bunch of recursion off of birth, as well as like oh all my monsters are banished, or all my cards are banished.
The funny thing is, your only on-field disruption is Fenrir usually, and then I mean
Yeah,
Ogre
it's
and Unicorn exist, but Unicorn's
Unicorn
actually
can be
pretty
kind
cool.
of annoying.
Yeah,
It's more so just the recursion of it, like
top
oh
deck
every
birth,
single
one birth
turn,
gets you.
birth,
Yep.
birth, birth. It's like oh okay, like, chill.
What do you think needs to happen? Like, because we're moving into not my favorite time of the season, Bandless season.
Christmas? Oh,
He, I think last warrant was one of my favorite because almost any deck could win, and just the variety. I know pro players or very big influencers like it just because of it.
it's hard to prep.
It's hard to prep even though last format I actually think it was pretty easy to prep because a lot of decks lost to the same. Like Droll was just so big. Had your back row removal against Lab or like that. Lab, it hit these floodgates and hit whatever. I think that there was enough last format to deal with almost every deck in a 15 side deck. But
Yeah,
now
I
we're
feel like
coming.
there's not enough space right now in the
Yeah,
side deck.
yeah. If we had a variable format right now, it would not be good. How prevalent Snake Eyes are.
Yeah,
But what do you think needs to happen? I mean, I don't want Konami to kill the deck. I also don't think that they can because of how
the fire cards are just good.
how new the cards are. Especially like they can't hit Bonfire. Bonfire came out a month and a half ago.
They're not gonna hit
Um,
Bonfire. They're not hitting Princess. They're not hitting
yeah,
Pop. That's my like. They're not hitting any of those 3 cards, and those 3 cards are the ones that kind of took the deck over the top.
yeah.
So what does that leave? Is the question, right? It leaves Snake Eye Ash, and it leaves Original, or it leaves Wanted.
And the
Those
dragon
are or Flamberge. You could limit Flamberge, I guess, which would make
wouldn't
it
kill
harder
the
to play
fire. Wouldn't
around.
kill the Fire King deck.
I think that limiting Flamberge isn't like that. If you limit Flamberge and something else, it's probably not that bad. It hurts their ability to play around Nib
You
by
yeah.
placing one Flamberge in the spell and trap card zone and leaving one on field for the that's just the pure variant though. But I think that like if they're going to kill a variant, it should probably be the Fire King variant and
I
just leave
agree.
the pure one. Because I think that like why kill the entire Snake Eye deck when you could just like in theory kill the stuff that makes it more splashable, which would be I don't know, it'd either be like limiting Wanted or banning OSS. Probably. Those are like the 2 most reasonable options. Um I don't know what you could limit Snake Eye Ash, I guess. So you only play
Konami's precedence was always
three,
to hit
six,
consistency.
7, 8, 9. So you can only play 12 copies of Snake Eye Ash
This is
instead of
super heavy. This is
14.
super heavy samurai.
I'm like,
We
wait,
went
how
from
many? I'm like, how many? So it's like, what happens? You limit Snake Eye Ash and
three,
okay,
yeah,
everyone's
three
playing
ash,
3
two
Witch,
poplar,
everyone's
whatever.
playing 3. Everyone's playing 3 Witch now. Everyone's playing 3 Wanted. Everyone plays 1 for 1. You have your
Yeah,
OSS still.
it is
You have your
crazy to me.
bonfires.
It is crazy to me. Like I was so tilted at super heavy samurai for having 12 1-card starters. This deck has like 18. It feels like. I mean, I think you said 15, but and you can also
Yeah.
like super heavy samurai only had 12. You can have 21-card starters if you played more originals, if you played more 1-for-1s, if you played
Yeah.
Rare Arthau or whatever you want. There's
Hey,
other
that's
random
not
cards.
a 1-card starter
You need
though.
to have level 1. Yeah. Normal summon Oak, search Poplar. There's your starter.
Um Realistically, you just have to hit the consistency of the deck, which is really hard to do
Yep.
because the deck is already so consistent. So it's like, in my opinion, it's weird, right? So I think they might ban OSS, which might hurt the deck a lot more though than people think, because like if you ban original,
I don't think you
you're
can.
no you're no longer playing the wanted cards, right? That cuts off 7 cards actually from the engine, and not just 1. If if Black Witch Summit like was able to get into engine elsewhere, maybe it's like, or like some other roundabout way, maybe. I think it's probably limit wanted is the best option, but it's
I
like
think it's
limit
like
wanted and like semi limit, like, or like limit wanted, limit ash or something like that.
I think the 3 cards that
Um
need to get hit are like that would bring down the power level would be, as you said, Wanted, Ash, and then also I think Key need to get some
I don't,
Fire
I
King.
think Kieran's like fine. I don't know. It's like I think the Fire King cards are actually just kind of fine. It's not the biggest deal. I'll board down to 1 Kieran, like going second sometimes, or if I need space.
Got it.
You can do it. It hurts a little bit. It hurts the ability to dodge interruptions.
Yep.
Um, but that's like, it's sometimes it's kind of neg to dodge with Kieran anyways, because you're like, sure, you get your Poplar, but it's like you lose your level 1 body. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but sometimes like imperming Snake Eye Ash almost accomplishes what you want it to anyways. It makes them go into different engines a lot earlier and makes your second interruption a lot better. Um,
And I also think that, I mean, similar to how because I don't think they can do too much this list, just because again
I don't think they're gonna
you
do that
can't
much.
do anything to the other decks that exist because Snake Eye cards are too. But I think cards very similar to the last list where they hit, there can only be one Rivalry of Warlords.
Hit the
Match,
floodgates.
you have to get rid of anti-spell and summon limit. And the funny thing is, it's hilarious how last format, anti-spell and summon limit were just not good cards. They didn't exist. And that was when they hit those, every deck last format that went first could side in these goes and match or rivalry. And now Snake Eye can't play those cards. So now they went to summon limit, where if you keep Ash on the field and you summon and I summon limit, you lose the game because Ash just gets rid of it, and I play my game next turn anyway under no restriction. And
That's what I
that's
did.
kind of the
That's
same
what I
thing.
did
That's the
to
same with
somebody.
anti spell. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I did that
it's
at
so
the
degenerate. It's so it
yes.
shouldn't exist.
It's not interactive. I don't like it. And like that's I think the snake, like I said, the Snake Eye deck is like kind of fun to face when you can interact with it, but
Yep.
those take away the form of interaction, and like that takes away your ability to attempt to play through their board. Because like when I was playing Voiceless, I could beat those decks just by outplaying my opponent.
Yep.
Is their deck better than mine? Yes, I'm not going to argue that Voiceless is a better deck than Snake Eye or Fire King or whatever. But if I was the better player, I felt that I could force like their interactions early and outplay them and still beat that deck. I can't do that under
And
anti-spell
outplay
or
summon
summon
limit.
limit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
outplay summon
Okay,
limit.
okay, with Voiceless you kind of can, to be fair, but like
Yeah.
but not into the full Snake Eye board, right?
Yep.
You need to go into your
Yeah,
extra deck for
it's that
forms
on
of
top of
removal.
everything else. It's
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
full board plus now you can only summon one time.
Exactly, because like when you're facing that whole board, you need like forms of removal. You need to go into like your SP, you need to go into stuff like that, and you can't do that under
Yep.
Summon Limit. You can't go into your extra deck at all. You can't make any links.
Yep. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I think they need to like limit all those floodgates. Let's limit deck lockdown too for good measure. Let's just do that. Like I
It's
don't
just
I don't want to
droll
see
but
that
better.
card.
You do all your
Let's limit
search.
those, and then like I don't know, just limit wanted or something. I don't know if they will limit wanted.
That card's $50 right now. That is
Yeah, I think people are afraid. Is it really? Did it drop
yeah.
more? What?
I'm in a really fun chat that deals with pricing on a daily basis, and it dropped from
Oh my gosh!
110
Yeah, it's
to
$56
90
right now.
to 70 to 50. Bonfire I think is down to 80 or 75.
Yeah, Black Witch is $44.
Black Witch was always expensive. Black Witch was I think it maxed out at 50. So I think Black Witch is here to stay, which is why that card has
Yeah,
not dropped. People kind of figured that out.
they know Black Witch isn't going to get hit. If they
Yep,
hit something in the engine, it's going to be the wanted or
definitely.
the OSS. We've seen OSS drop in price too.
I've been slowly
OSS
I've been slowly picking up the Field Spell and OSS. I think those
OSS
cards
is
are also
$3 right now. OSS keeps dropping too.
because if those cards don't get hit, I think see a very
I
fun market post ban list.
So like Bonfire is dropping like low key. That's
Well,
like
yeah,
a
because if
decent investment.
well, no, I actually don't think it is because if Snake Eye's not playable, like guy doesn't get playable, then what's the point of? I know why.
I
I want
think
Bonfire,
I
but
think it'll be playable though. Like I don't think they're gonna nuke the deck.
I
I
don't
really
think either.
don't.
But I mean, again,
And
if
I
Snake Eye
think
doesn't make
Bonfire becomes even more essential if they hit some of the consistency cards, so it just goes back up in price.
also with
Also, fun
Centurion,
fact: Centurion Trudea is the best normal summon after the new set. So
that's a
so you
Pyro
played 3
monster for some
Bonfire.
reason.
It is. She is a Dark Pyro,
I was actually
level
looking at.
4.
I was trying to help a good friend of ours with deck, and I'm like, "Yo, could you play Duality in that deck?" And you could go Trinea Duality for a light pyro. I'm like, there's no light pyro in the
There's no
fucking
light
game.
pyro. There's only one dark pyro.
Yeah. I was looking for like anything. I'm like, no, I got nothing.
I
But
think I said the same thing. I was like, could you play duality?
yeah, if you get impermed, haha, I got you.
To be fair, that doesn't really do anything because Shredea has to push herself down to the spell and trap card zone to
But it'd be fun.
place. It would be
It'd
very
be fun.
fun. Well, no, I was looking, I think, for extra deck monsters. I'm like, what if you just like
Yeah. Why not tag out in like something that locks your
something cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think to end this stream, I want to talk about. So again, to end the podcast, I wanted to talk about some things very similar to. Again, this takes a lot of inspiration from Something Insight, and I want to do it. And it has a lot of banter, it has a lot of trash talk, it has a lot of spicy content. And I really want to bring up these couple pieces of content, conversation, just because it very much involves the I missed something in my list of things that just happened today, which we can talk about. Controversy. I want to talk about some controversy. And the first thing actually just came out today was the Konami is now hiding the ban list of banned players, suspended players.
I noticed that. I looked a couple like last week because I wanted to see because we were talking about a player that had been banned, a while back, like in 2021, and I was like, oh, I wonder if he's still banned. That was all it was. It was a well-known player, so I wanted to see if he was still on the ban list. I'm like, I can't find the ban list, or I can't find the banned player list.
I have no problem with this, but there is an issue that I think can arise here, which is very much so like I think of like a Tyler One situation where the more influential you are, the less the rules matter to you. So,
I
for
agree.
example, not saying that this is gonna happen, but Paulie, our past world champion from 2022, he got suspended for I think 6 months, and it was for something completely stupid that was under his control, and it was an honest mistake. I think he entered a remote duel tournament when he
It
wasn't
was
allowed to.
no,
Or,
he entered a remote duel event. He realized he forgot to put, or he'd put the wrong Pearly extra deck monster in his extra deck. So he asked somebody if he could
oh yeah.
drop with a round 1 loss and then re-enter with the
That's
correct
right.
deck
Yeah.
list. And then he was told yes, apparently. I guess he had like misunderstood, so he dropped, re-entered, and that's it. He can't do that, so he got suspended for 6 months.
Yeah, and I
Sure.
mean I mean
That's an honest mistake. He didn't know. Should he know? Yes, he acknowledged that he should probably know that he can't do that.
yeah.
But
And I think 6 months
that's
is
like
it's not. I
that's
mean,
a,
I actually
that's
think it's not bad. It's gonna be a lot
and
worse.
yeah.
But like, I'm
6 months
worried.
isn't the biggest deal.
It just worries me that is such an influential figure. Again, world champion from last year did really well at the. Oh no, my bad. World champion. Yeah, he's the best.
He won worlds. Yeah,
um,
he's the world champion.
Like, what happens if I see this guy at YCS Raleigh? Not that I'm going, but like, we don't know. Like we won't for the next big player that might get hit, they could easily wiggle their way out, and then they're back to normalcy. They're back to being able to play the game. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, that's not fair to people who get suspended or they get banned for a year or that. We then have to go through Konami's shit customer service of emailing them, and hopefully they respond before the event. And because if they don't, you're still banned. There's nothing they can do about it. They can appeal, and but I'm again, it's not the biggest of problems, but I think that there is just there could be some problems that can arise from that.
In fact, I think Raleigh's the first major event Paulie's eligible to come back from.
Oh yeah, that is. I can't. Yeah, that was like pre.
He got suspended like um November. I'm friends with somebody who's friends with Paulie, and he messaged me about it in November, like November 15th. And so 6 months from, so like you go November to December, December to January, January, February,
Yeah.
February, March. No, 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 it's May. It's May. I
Hey.
lied. Yep, I was
Well,
one
what if
off.
we see him playing at Raleigh?
One off.
What if we see him playing at Raleigh though?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if he had, like, we don't know if he appealed. I don't think he did,
Yeah.
but if, like, maybe, who knows?
But
It's hard to know.
it's
Like
for future use. I mean, we know who's banned now,
I
but I mean, yeah.
on the surface, I don't think it's a big deal that they don't have the banned players list public, but I feel like it should be to at least it should be a list at least accessible to anyone that owns and operates an OTS store. I don't know if it is,
It is. It
but I feel
is.
like it should be. Okay, so it is
Yeah.
to them. But like even if I'm going to an OTS store, I would like to know if there's somebody that was like banned
Yep.
there, right? I like because maybe it's like, or even if it was somebody, if it's not an OTS sanctioned event, right? Maybe you're going to just like, a new shop that opened up that's not OTS, that's not an OTS store yet, but you're just like, hey, I'm gonna go play in this like slow to locals there, and you're like, oh, isn't this player banned in this area? Because word gets around in your local areas if somebody gets banned,
Yep.
you end up knowing.
Sometimes they're still not banned, and
Sometimes they're still
Konami just
banned
doesn't
and
do
they're still
anything about it.
playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny.
But like I would like to know that personally.
Yeah.
But it's hard to count. It's hard to do.
The second piece of controversy I wanted to bring up was, and I mean, you might not want to speak on the topic, but you may not want to speak on the topic, but Chris LeBlanc. So recently, Chris LeBlanc with the Jawari brothers, Hani and Sam,
Hassam.
I don't actually, just won Vegas. And obviously, what happens, and you can go search for yourself as to the controversy with Chris LeBlanc, but internet in the Yu-Gi-Oh community blew up because now, not because he's the face of the game, but this man is still, they go on the quotes of this man's still allowed to play Yu-Gi-Oh, blah blah blah, because he did such and such. And that's something that only ever comes up once he's either in like the top 16 or a deck list comes out or he wins an event or like that. And at the end of the day, I'm just gonna say it as I think it is. There's we live in a really cool country that's innocent until proven guilty. And I personally have had positive interactions with the guy. I dueled him at Philly Regional. He kicked my ass because I opened up 4 hand traps and volcanic shell. But he he's been nice to me. I know nothing of wrongdoing. He's good at Yu-Gi-Oh. Let's leave it at that. But I just think the community needs to lighten up a little bit when somebody under investigation or that wins an event. Just I think they just need to settle down a little bit. Take a chill pill in that regard. If you want to say anything on it, you can. If not, just skip on to the next thing.
I'll just say I'm like more on the other end of the spectrum, but like I'm not gonna like, bring out the pitchforks and everything.
Yeah.
Um, I am definitely not a LeBlanc defender in any means, nor will I probably ever be. So I won't throw my support behind him, but at
Oh,
the end of the day,
I again no support for that. I mean,
at the
yeah, there's no rule. I don't
just
think
in
there's.
general, like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like I just seeing a lot of the sources from, from different having different people speak out against them that are prominent in the community is kind of big red flag for me. I won't be throwing any support behind him, but I've also seen a lot of like misconstrued information going around there. So I think people in not even it's not like I used to play competitive Smash Bros, right? It's the same thing. Like every
Oh my
community,
god, yeah.
like
Yeah.
Smash Bros, League of Legends, Yu-Gi-Oh, like people take one piece of information and they'll misconstrue it and they'll run with it.
Yep.
So it's like stuff I'm seeing thrown about LeBlanc is it's like might not be factually correct to what was actually being said, which means that it makes it makes I'm not gonna say it makes LeBlanc look worse because I like that's not what I mean at all because I think he is I still don't
You're
like
good, you're good,
regardless
you're
of
good.
it.
Yeah.
It's a weird it's I want to tiptoe around my words, right?
You're fine.
But be misconstrued information isn't helpful to anybody is what I want to
Yeah.
say at the end of the day. It's not helpful
Misinformation's
to
awful.
anybody. Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of misinformation being thrown around, which it doesn't help anybody at
Yep.
all. Um and that's like I'll basically leave it at that. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh players, sure, you have to come to your own conclusions, I guess. You could get mad at Konami. You could like sure, you could fill out petitions, you could do whatever, but it's like at the end of the day, I think there's just so much misinformation being spread around that it makes everything worse.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I think he's just a good card player, and that's what the game is.
He
Playing
is a
a
good
card game.
Yu-Gi-Oh player. I don't think
Um
anyone could take away the
yeah.
fact that he is one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh players
6 YCS
in the
wins and
world. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
No one
that's
no
fucking
one
insane.
yeah. Yeah.
And
That is factual at the end of the day. I'm not gonna I can't dispute that. I can't be like, oh no, because you're a shit person, you're a shit Yu-Gi-Oh player. That's not how that works. Like
definitely.
sure you are a great Yu-Gi-Oh player. No one's
And
I
then
can't take that away from you. And
and
it's
then we'll
like
let whatever else is out there speak.
whatever else plays out, whatever however it plays out, it plays out. You could some people be a defender, some people won't. It is what it is.
Yep, I agree. And
And
we'll quickly slide out of that. But the last thing I want to bring up is the finals of YCS Coast. My bad, YCS Vegas, which was
Vegas,
another
yeah.
thing in the community about sportsmanship and how you should act on street. For those of
I
you who
don't
don't
care about
know,
that one.
yes. However, I think it's something I quickly want to talk about. For
Yeah.
those of you who don't know,
No, that's fair.
Hani Jawari and Pac had played their finals. We're on game 3, and there was some trash talking. There was some, I'm gonna fucking whoop your ass. Not that that was said, but like it was it was nicer than that. But like I got the win. I got the win. Like you're excited, and I think that trash talk. Again, I come from League of Legends, and let me tell you, season 3, season 4 League of Legends was just pro scene was just so much better because you have all these names, you have all these figures who are trash talking each other. You're now they're supporting their team. It's really becoming a team sport, and like you feel the passion for the game. Now we're at season 13 where nobody has a fucking personality in the league scene except like JoJo Pyun. And um no one gives a shit and everybody just compliments. I think that fun trash talk is fun. I don't think it's not sportsmanlike. You're about to win a fucking final. You want like I'm watching at home and I'm living vicariously through these two players because they're such great players and they're fucking duking it out. And who cares if Hani says I got this fucking game and Pac says no you don't? That's awesome. Pac has the game even though he didn't. What information we had that he didn't. But like the people blowing that shit out of proportion is just wild to me. Let this game like I wish I wish I could like be playing at my locals and tell my opponent to get shit on because I'm so passionate about the game and I just 2-0'd his ass. And I mean that's not as sportsmanlike, but like I want to do something like that. But at the
It's
end of the
like
day, I'm friends with all my locals competitors.
a,
I'm not gonna do that, but I wish I could.
it's like again, I come from the Smash Bros scene, right? Where pop-offs and shit like that, that's like normal,
Yeah, I
right?
remember the
Shit
remember
talk's
the
normal.
Evo. Remember Evo in the Hungry Box like won his final. He like went on his knees like ah, and he just went
Yeah.
fucking wild. And then there was the one where Hungry Box was playing another guy, and Hungry Box's coach came up and gave him advice, and somebody pushed him back, and then the other dude's like just random ass friend came up to the stage and mocked giving coach advice to like make fun of him. Like that's the shit we're made of. Like that makes the sport and not that makes the game fun and makes it interactive and makes it like for us spectators, it gives us a good show. It doesn't need to be all monotone and well mannered and all this. But I mean, as long as it's done within good sport, it's great.
I think
That's all I want to
Konami,
say.
at the end of the day, it just comes down to Konami wanting the game to be how Konami wants the game to be portrayed, right? Because all this production is done through Konami, which
Yep.
is fine. That's a good thing that Konami is backing the game competitively, right? That's the difference, I guess, between Smash Bros. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Nintendo ain't sponsoring anything in Smash Bros.
Nintendo got
Konami
Smash
is.
taken out of Evo. They were like, "Oh
Yeah.
my god!" I remember
Yeah.
that shit controversy. That was
Yeah.
awful. Melee
So
and
I
then
think
Ultimate, and now it's nothing.
now it's doomed. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's like at the end of the day, I'm not going to complain too much because at least Konami, you can complain about the pricing, whatever it is, what it is. At least we have Konami sanctioned events, like Konami's helping going out of the like helping make sure the scene is up and running across the country, and having YCSs and stuff like that. Because a lot of other games don't have like main company backing like that. So I think
yep.
that is something that even Lorcana, right? There's no Lorcana sponsor like official Disney Lorcana events yet.
Yep.
The closest we had was Lorcana leagues. Like Konami has, for all intents and purposes, has done a very good job at supporting the Yu-Gi-Oh as a competitive game. Even if everybody has some grievances, it is what it is. Like they have some complaints, sure. Better to have the company backing the competitive scene than to not have it at all, in my opinion.
But yeah, trash talk is good.
Trash
That's
talk good at
that's
the end,
yeah. Trash
especially
talk.
between friends, right? At the end
Yeah.
of the day, like Hani and
And they
Pac
are
are friends.
friends. Like
They know, yeah, they know each other. Like it is like Pac's not getting bent out of shape
yeah.
about that. Like he's like, oh okay.
Pac just starts throwing hands across the table on the file. He's like, "What'd you just say to me?"
What'd you say? What'd you call me?
His brass song. He's like, I got." But yeah, I think that wraps up. That wraps up this first episode of the Card Table, brought to you by Competitive Cards United. What we would do on a future episode is very similar to Summoning Insight. Is somehow Discord through something else. We would take viewer questions, and then we would spend 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes talking about viewer questions. I'll just quickly go over what we saw in chat so far. Not that we're going to have that big of a following at the moment, but later on down the line, we'll see what happens. So, are we going to be reviewing PC deck builders? I hope to eventually talk about card games like Slay the Spire, or something like that. Even though there's not really a competitive aspect to it, there's the running aspect of it. There's that type of that aspect of deck builder. And then what is my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card from first gen? Huh.
What's first gen? Just like
First gen
OG
would be Duel
Yu-Gi-Oh,
Monsters. It'd be before ancient
like before GX,
before the ancient Gear Golem pack.
just like pre-goat format.
I guess. No, it wouldn't be pre-Go. When did GX come out? Was it 2000?
So goat format is everything through the first set of GX, which is the
Oh,
ancient gold, the ancient
fine.
gear golem
I'd say
pack.
before that. Yeah. Let me tell you, my favorite's probably Slot Machine, and
That's a
you've
good
played it
one.
for no obvious reason.
I don't know.
Do
I
you have
like
a?
DD Warrior Lady.
You didn't really say it.
That card is sick.
Yeah. And there's always Pot of Greed. That's always on mention. That card. People think that card can come back. That's so fucking like.
+1.
Yeah.
Every single deck gets a plus. Every single deck is just running a
Upstart
+1 now.
Goblin's still at 1. So that card's at 3.
It did go to 3.
No one plays it. So maybe Pot of Greed can.
Yeah,
You just
but
fucking thrust. You just fucking thrust into Pot of Greed.
Draw 2.
But yeah, Himmels, thanks for being on the show. I
Yeah,
really
no, thanks
appreciate
for
you getting
having
on.
me.
Um,
Absolutely.
I'm not sure what the next episode is going to be about. I presume it's going to be about Hearthstone. We have the newest expansion called Whiz Bangs something Toy Factory.
No, that's not
like that.
real.
So I'm on the hunt to try to get Raran, who is a very large Hearthstone person. He's like 100K subs on YouTube, but he also has a lot of experience in other card games. He has been. I don't know if you've watched him, or if he's done stuff with Farfa for Yu-Gi-Oh. He's trying to learn Yu-Gi-Oh. There was that big controversy like 3 months ago where he tried to learn Yu-Gi-Oh. He called the game shit,
Oh, I
from
remember
Master
that.
Duel.
That's all I remember. And I
Um,
remember there's a recent clip circulating Reddit, right? The one where he's saying Yu-Gi-Oh players can't read,
yeah.
and that he sets his Taie or his
Yeah.
Moye rather. Yeah.
So I think it'd be really cool to tie in both the Hearthstone and the Yu-Gi-Oh aspect of the game. But yeah, we'll see what I can do for Competitive Cards United for episode 2. But thank you everybody for stopping around. Really appreciate it, and hope to catch you on the next episode. This episode will be on YouTube within the next 20 minutes.